It starts with a favorite. Not the kind where someone pins a ribbon on your chest, not the kind you ever asked for. It starts quietly, in the spaces between louder fights. A parent sighs, a sibling storms off, and someone has to smooth it over, and that someone becomes you. You're young, maybe 10, maybe 12. Your brother screams at your mother. Your sister steals money from your father's wallet. You watch the fallout from the corner of the room, and then you step forward. Not because you're brave, you're terrified, actually. Because the silence after is worse than the fight itself. So you explain for them. They didn't mean it. They're just tired. I'll talk to them. You become the translator, the buffer, the one who holds both sides together so the whole thing doesn't crack into pieces nobody can glue back. Years pass. You don't remember the exact moments, but the role stays on you like a second skin. Now you're an adult. That same sibling calls at midnight. They need money for rent they knew was due weeks ago, or a place to stay because their roommate finally had enough, or someone to call their boss and say they're sick when they're actually hungover, and you still pick up the phone. You still defend them to your parents. They're going through a really hard time. You don't understand what it's like to be them. I'm the only one they have. You still believe that if you just explain them well enough, everyone will finally see the good you've always seen through your tired, forgiving eyes. And then one day, they do something that breaks the last thread. Not a small thing. Something that leaves you standing in your kitchen at 2 a.m. alone, wondering how the person you protected most became the person who hurt you worst. You replay every rescue, every excuse, every dollar you gave and never got back. And the question that comes isn't anger, it's something colder. Was any of it real, or was I just useful? If someone heard that story, they'd say the problem is obvious. You were too nice. You enabled them. You should have set limits years ago. You should have just let them fail. And that's a pretty fair thing to think. It's what every self-help book would tell you. It's probably what your friends have said over coffee, gently, while you nodded and then went and did nothing different. But there might be a second reason, one that has nothing to do with weakness or naivety or being a pushover. And it's not what you'd expect. The first reason, the one everyone talks about, is that you're a people pleaser. You avoid conflict. You'd rather absorb the damage than watch someone you love struggle. You learned early that peace costs something, and you decided you were willing to pay it. That's the surface read. And it's not wrong, but it's not the whole truth. It misses the engine underneath the engine. The second reason is harder to spot, but it's the one that really runs the whole show. You didn't defend that sibling because you were weak. You defended them because, somewhere deep, you believed that if you could keep them from falling apart, you would finally prove you were the good one, the loyal one, the one who held everything together when no one else could. Not just to your parents, to yourself. You needed to be the person who never gives up. Because if you gave up on them, what would that say about you? And that belief, that desperate, unspoken need to be seen as the one who never walks away, is what made you blind. It's also what made you stay long after every sensible person would have already left. See, when you're the designated defender of a difficult person, you don't just protect them, you start to need them to stay difficult. Because if they suddenly became responsible, if they got a steady job, stopped lying, started showing up, what would be left of your role? Who would you be without the mission of saving them? That's the part no one admits, not out loud. But the second reason you kept defending them is that their chaos gave your life a shape. You were the fixer, and fixers don't quit until there's nothing left to fix. Subconsciously, you needed them to need you. So you overextended, you emptied your savings, you lost nights of sleep, you turned down your own plans, vacations, dinners, quiet weekends, to handle their emergencies. And every time you told yourself, this is what love looks like. This is what family does. But love isn't supposed to make you disappear from your own life. Family isn't supposed to drain you until you're a shell who only exists to catch someone else's falls. Let's look at a real example. Your sister announces she's moving in with a boyfriend she's known for 3 weeks. Everyone can see it will end badly. Your mother calls you in tears. Talk to her. Make her see reason. So you do. You drive across town. You sit in her messy apartment. You explain, gently, why this is a mistake. She screams at you to leave. You do. 2 months later, she's on your doorstep with a suitcase and no apology. And you let her in. Because what else could you do? She's your sister. You defended her then. You'll defend her now. Or this. Your brother loses his job again. Same story as last time. He didn't show up, didn't call, didn't care. Your father says he's hopeless. You say he just needs someone to believe in him. So you update his resume. You send out applications. You lie to your parents about how hard he's trying. And when he gets the next job and loses it the same exact way, you start the whole cycle over. Because if you stop, who will save him? And if you can't save him, what were all those years even for? Here's another one you might recognize. Your sibling gets into legal trouble. Nothing minor. You get the call at work. Your voice stays calm, but your hands are shaking. You hire the lawyer. You drain your emergency fund. You tell yourself, this is the last time. And when they thank you with tears in their eyes, you believe it. Until the next call. And the next. Because you've become their safety net, and they've stopped looking for any other way out. This is how the person you defended most becomes the person who hurts you first. Not because they planned it. Because you taught them that your limits are flexible, that your love has no bottom. And people, even the ones you love, especially the ones you love, will use what you give them. Not because they're evil, because they're human. And you trained them over years to expect no resistance. Now here's what really happens underneath all of that. Your nervous system got trained to equate their stability with your worth. When they were calm, you felt like a success. When they spiraled, you felt like you'd failed. So you worked harder, not for them anymore. For the feeling of being the one person who never walked away. That's the hidden engine. And it's the reason the person you defended most can hurt you first. Because you gave them a power no one else had. You told them, with every rescue, with every excuse you made on their behalf, that your limits didn't exist. That you would always show up. That you would never say no. Think about the last time you tried to set even a small limit with them. Maybe you said, I can't help this time. Or, you need to figure this one out yourself. What happened next? Did they get angry? Did they guilt you? Did they call you selfish? Or worse, did they go quiet, leaving you to fill the emptiness with your own apologies before they even asked for them? That reaction isn't proof that you're wrong. It's proof that the system you built together doesn't know how to run without your sacrifice. And that's not your responsibility to keep propped up. The shift, and it's small, don't expect any fireworks, is this. You start to notice the moment before you leap. That 1 second where your chest tightens and your hand reaches for the phone and your mouth opens to make an excuse you don't even believe anymore. In that second, you pause. You ask yourself a question you've never really asked. What happens if I don't rescue them this time? Not in anger, not to punish, just curious, just to see what's actually there. You might find that the world doesn't end. They figure something out. Or they don't. But you don't disappear either. The phone doesn't explode. Your parents don't disown you. The guilt comes, yes. It always comes. But guilt is not a command, it's just a feeling. And feelings change when you stop obeying them like they're law. Slowly, very slowly, you realize that their chaos was never yours to carry. You weren't their savior. You were just a child who learned too early that love means sacrifice, that peace costs your own comfort, that being good means giving until there's nothing left. And that lesson, the one you absorbed before you could even speak, was always wrong. So here's what you do with that realization. Nothing heroic. You stop explaining. You stop translating their behavior to everyone else. You let them speak for themselves, even when they stumble. You let them face the consequences of their own choices, even when it's genuinely hard to watch. And when the guilt comes, because it will, loud and familiar, you recognize it for what it is. Not a sign that you're cruel. Not proof that you're failing. Just an old reflex that doesn't fit anymore. A reflex you never chose. A reflex you can finally set down. You don't have to cut anyone off. You don't have to go cold. You just have to stop being the one who always catches them. That's not abandonment. That's the difference between love and a life sentence. And that, really, is the second reason the adult child you defended most can hurt you first. Not because you were weak, not because you were blind, because you were trying to be strong for someone who never once asked you to carry them, because you confused loyalty with self-destruction, because you believed that if you just held on long enough, they would finally become the person you always hoped they could be. That hope wasn't wrong. It was just placed in the wrong hands. And that's not your flaw. That's just where the story started. You get to write the next chapter now. Not for them, not for your parents, not for the ghost of the child you used to be. For you.